everyone. This is Doug Campbell-John, and welcome to this week's episode of Revenue Renegades. This week we have the CEO of Gainsight, Nick Mehta. I don't know if Nick gets a royalty every time Zuckerberg mentions Meta, but that would be nice. But
check or the $100 million offer. That would be even better.
that would be good. $100 million, signing bonus. That'd be good. But Nick is the one kind of single-handedly created the customer success category, and now I think Gainsight really is by far the leading platform for managing your kind of post-sales customer success journey. So, Nick,
definitely not single-handedly, Doug, and definitely not just Gainsight. But thank you for the kind word. I have two hands. Not two hands.
You get the lion's share of credit, my friend. We'll talk a little bit about category creation in here as well. But so good to see you, and welcome to the show.
Same here. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate you.
So let's kick it off. I mean, go back in the time capsule and think back to the beginning of Gainsight. Like, what was the spark? What kind of where did the idea come from?
Yes, so it's really like a interesting, just kind of convergence of random things happening all at once, as is all entrepreneurship. I ran a SaaS company before Gainsight. It was an early SaaS company, small. It wasn't very big. Ran it, sold it. And, but it was great. It was great. And there was, in those few years, I learned, oh, wow, the world is really different from when you sold software and you could just walk away. Doug, you and I met obviously, long time ago. I was at, an executive at, a VP GM at Symantec, and products are mostly like traditional enterprise software. You sell it and, you can move on to the next customer. And this world of SaaS was brand new to me when I ran my last company. And I remember sitting there in a conference room and asking people, oh, this is awesome. It's all in the cloud. So now we must know everything about our customers. And I was like, well, how do we know what's going on with the customers? And, somebody projected a spreadsheet on the screen, right? And I was like, wow, even though theoretically the companies are moving to the cloud, practically they're still doing the same things the way they always did, which is focus a ton on getting new customers. And then after the sale, just being reactive. And it so happened that a couple other entrepreneurs had the same idea. This guy, Jim Eberlin and Sridhar Pedanetti, and they were kind of off working in their own idea. I was working on mine. I was an EI entrepreneur in residence at Excel Venture Partners. And then it was a different VC firm, Battery Ventures, as the serendipity of the Valley. Battery said, hey, Nick, you're thinking about this. You should meet these other two guys. And we met up and totally hit it off. And, that was 2013. So, way more than a decade ago, way pre-LLM, pre-transformer. That's all that matters. It's pre-transformer or post-transformer. This is pre-transformer. But
BC, before ChatGPT.
Oh, that's it. Exactly. So that's how it all started. And then, honestly, all we knew was, hey, as more companies move to these SaaS models, they would need to focus on not just getting customers, but keeping them and growing them. We thought that was a way to then over time maybe disrupt the overall broader space of like CRM and all that. We had this little wedge that we would go after. We didn't realize how little TAM there was back then. Frankly, there weren't that many SaaS companies. And we were selling to this new role, customer success manager, which we did not create that term. Salesforce actually pioneered the term. But when we got started, now we know with the benefit of hindsight, when we got started, there were probably maybe 1,000 CSMs in the world, like humans, like people in the world. Yeah. And if our software is, a few $1,000s a seat, our core product, so our TAM was like $1 million, $2 million. So thank God we didn't know that. Otherwise we would have never done gains, right? But then, we figured out, okay, our job isn't just to evangelize our company, but it's actually evangelize a whole new way of thinking, a new job. And hence, we can talk more about it if you want to, but created a conference and a book, wrote a number of books. And so got really good at category creation, but not out of desire, out of necessity.
Well, I admire that because I remember those days, and it was really like you were the evangelist. You were like the Bible thumper, right?
Oh, I remember
you were up there.
When you were doing your startup, right? Flip that back then. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right. It was just. And so maybe talk a little bit because we have Chris Lockhead. I've been on his show. He's coming on this show, like kind of one of the fathers of category creation. And I think all entrepreneurs, I think, at some thing wouldn't be great. Like back in the Gartner days, wouldn't be great if there was a 3-letter acronym named after us about the category. And I think like you and I have enough, road miles to now realize like that is a non-trivial task, but you took it on out of, as you said, a necessity nonetheless. So tell me a little bit about like how you thought about the value of the conference and whether you think startups should do that, and the book and things like that, and building your category.
Totally, yeah. Is road miles? I picked something up here, Doug. Is that what I say when my kids say that I'm old? Do I just say I have road
Yeah,
miles?
I rode, like experience miles, road
Experience
miles.
miles. And that's
Yeah.
what the gray hairs are exactly in my hair too. Um, no, so we first of all, yes, like Chris Luck and Play Bigger, that those folks are the ones who really know this in a more general sense. I could just tell you like the journey we've had. But early on we were like, is there a category for this? Is there an acronym? Is there a magic quadrant from Gartner, which is the term Gartner uses to like measure spaces, as Doug knows very well, but for folks that are watching, if you don't know. So was there a category? Was there a buyer? And the answer was no, 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 no. But there was this like emerging underserved group of people that were these people that were starting to call this term CSM. Now they may have come, as you know, might have come from different jobs before, account management, support, services, a million different titles, but they were converging into this new thing. And one of the seminal moments in GameSide history is actually a really it's not Pulse, our big event. It's actually something before Pulse. We were just getting started. We had this office that was, I think, I knew you in that time frame where we had this office above a bar in Mountain View, California. It was this crappy little 3,000 square foot office. The carpet was peeling off the floor. There was like one men's bathroom, one women's bathroom, which was very problematic because we had like 40 or 50 people at that point at the company. So that was a whole different issue. And but we were like, hey, and like we have this software. It's like customer retention. The software was very very basic at that point. But we're like, okay, there's this new role called customer success manager. What if we threw a meetup in our office to just like see if anyone wants to come? So we just put up one of those meetup, links or whatever, and sent it around. Probably got forwarded around a bunch. We literally went to Safeway, got like which is a grocery store for folks that are not based in California, and bought like the cheap cheese tray, the cheap wine, and like just put it out there on like one of those plastic conference room tables that you get right when you're really like tiny little startup. And the office was totally packed with people. Like 70, we thought like 20 people come, like 75 people came. Like there was that 2 bathroom situation was even worse with all those people coming in. And they weren't coming, I'll joke later, we were like, they weren't coming for the wine or the food. They were coming for each other. And we were like, wow, all these people, like it just, I remember that night like it was yesterday. And they just kept talking and talking. And like it went on till like 11 o'clock at night because they were like, it was almost like finally there's people like me. So then Anthony Canada, who I think you met early on, was our first CMO. It was amazing. And still one of my dearest friends. And he had the idea. I remember he showed me this presentation. This is like early 2013. He shows me this presentation. He called it Gold Rush. He's a very ambitious guy. He's like, we're gonna create this new kind of category, and we're gonna start out by running a conference. Now we thought the conference would be like a little small event, 50, 100 people. And we booked a ballroom in San Francisco. Actually, we were using venture capital dollars, so I'm pretty sure it was a Four Seasons San Francisco. So a little incongruous with the amount of money with no revenue. So put that to the side. And we sent out an invite again, and like 300 people came. And we had I knew some CEOs, and I invited Aaron Levy, very kind, been a great friend of Gates the entire time, and he was on stage, and we had, you know who Jeffrey Moore is, Crossing the Chasm. Folks that don't know, he's an extremely famous business thinker, author. He spoke, and it was amazing. It was like this, like the room was buzzing. It was same vibe, a little bit better food. It wasn't the Safeway wine and cheese anymore, Four Seasons catered, but same thing. It was totally buzzing. And so that was what we called it Pulse, Pulse, because we didn't want it to be about Gainsight. We wanted it to be about the industry. And that was a huge decision. Like it was a little bit random at the time, but we could have called it the Gainsight Conference or the Gainsight something. And it's called Pulse from then to now. And, you fast forward, we've done it every year since 2013, 1 or 2 years of virtual because of COVID. We've been everywhere, San Francisco, We did it most recent in Vegas. We did Moscone Center in SF. We did Oakland. We did all over London. We're doing Dublin this year. I've done Amsterdam, Sydney, everywhere. Tens and thousands. I mean, I don't even know if you add up the total unique attendees at Pulse, probably might be like at this point 30, 40, 50,000 people over time have come and gone to this event, and it's become like kind of the industry event in this space. And we made it all about the community. So if you go to this event all the way from the beginning till now, and afterwards, like we wrapped up our most recent one in May of this year, at the end you walk around, you say, hey, what's the biggest value you got out of this event? And they, most of the time, almost every time, people are like, there's other people like me. I'm not alone. I'm not on the wrong track. I'm not dumb. And of course they learn things in the sessions and whatever, right? But it's really community first. And I really enjoy that. So part of it, I think, is we all enjoy building community, bring people together, whether it's the big events or we do all kinds of small events and road shows and all that. And then, one of the other things that happened very early on that was really important was this idea of how do we then share the knowledge? Like we were definitely not experts, but we were talking to all these companies and learning what were they doing. And we had our first chief customer officer, Dan Steinman, who I think you might have met way back in the day. And Dan, still a dear friend, and Dan was early Gainsight, and was previously the head of CS at Marketo, who very early SaaS company for folks that don't know Marketo, but one of the iconic early SaaS companies. And so Dan had some experience just building CS in the early days. And so he came in, he talked to a lot of companies, he spoke to so many teams and just helped them learn, this craft. And then we canonized it initially into a PDF, the 10 Laws of Customer Success, like a ebook or whatever, right? Cheesy. And then it was like, there was so much resonance. And then we got this cold email in 2014 from Wiley Publishing. And the email was, hey, Nick, I think it was just to me, we'd love to have you write a book about customer success. And of course, I'm like, what friend is pranking me right now? There's no way that we should be qualified to write a book about anything. Like, have you been to our office? The carpet's peeling. Like, we should not be writing a book about anything. But, thank goodness to Dan, who actually did the vast majority of the work. He took the 10 Laws of Customer Success. He blew it out into a book. I wrote a little bit. He wrote the vast majority. And that thing got, literally more than 100,000 copies sold. My guess is half of all CSMs in the world read it at some point to start their career. It's awesome. It's incredible. It's been great for our business, but it's just been very satisfying. And then over the years, then we literally wrote 4 more books on customer success, which is crazy. We're the most boring publishing house ever. But in this little world, it actually helped. The common theme, and we've done all kinds of other things, internship programs for CS to help bring interns into companies, training, an online university, train people on CS. But the common theme is all of these things that you could never ascribe a lead value to or an ROI, but literally with the benefit of 12 years of hindsight, everything that we have in terms of business, about $230 million business right now of revenue, that is all because of Pulse and the book and all those things from the early days. So the ROI of that Safeway wine and cheese is the highest you could possibly ever have.
It all leads back to the Safeway wine and cheese. I love the take on it as well. I mean, obviously the Box has done this for years with BoxWorks, and Mark is obviously the master of it with Dreamforce. But I think that the thing that I love of what you just said there is that obviously it's a platform for Gainsight. You guys make some product announcements and you have your keynote and there's that stuff as well. But it is one of those things where if you're focusing on that audience, and for you at that time especially, that audience didn't really have other venues. It was kind of like you're the weird kid in high school. Where's the other weird kids hang out?
That's it. And if that's the thing, it is a little, we got so much inspiration from Dreamforce, from HubSpot Inbound, from, Marketo's conference, from BoxWorks, et cetera, right? And I think probably the one that was probably the most similar vibe was probably the HubSpot event, because it's called Inbound. It's not called HubSpot. And ours is not called Gainsight. It's called Pulse. And it's kind of funny because there's a little thing that happens almost every year. Well, I get some kind of SDR from somewhere emailing me and being like, congratulations on being selected to speak at Pulse. And I'm like, battle. I'm proud. I'm going to humble brag a little bit. It's pretty impressive. I had to bribe some people, but it's kind of I said as a joke, but it's kind of cool because it shows that it has a life of its own beyond Gainsight, even though of course we're the ones who put it on and care a lot about it. And that's been absolutely amazing. And it's been so fun too. It brings the morale of the company up every year and all that too.
I love it. I love it. It's definitely a playbook I'm paying a lot of attention to. So we'll talk more about that offline. Let's shift gears for a moment to kind of AI, because you've posted recently that you've kind of shifted the Gainsight roadmap to kind of 70% AI, and this belief that like dashboards are dead, or will be dead. Talk more about that. Like, how do you first of all, like, how does AI product development differ than traditional SaaS product development? And then also why do you think things like dashboards are dying?
Well, let me do the latter than the former, because I think there's the why and then the how. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because what I post about specifically, just for folks have context, is that like, every software product, every application software out there, eventually you build reports. You have some kind of reports, dashboards, report builder, and every single product's like, okay, well, the customer wants us to be able to sort the report this way or create a pie chart or a multi-column or whatever, and you end up rebuilding Tableau or Power BI or whatever. Everyone knows this. Like, it's a universal. And then, but one of the things when you really think about it, why does a business person look at a report? They don't look at a report to look at a report. They look at a report to make a decision.
Yep.
Invest more in X, invest less in Y. Focus on these customers, not these ones. Dot, dot, dot. And so what's interesting is the report and the analyst and the business intelligence system and all these things are the intermediary between data and a decision. And pre-generative AI, you have two ways to do things. You can either run these reports yourself and use some reporting software, whether it's in a Gainsight or it's a purpose-built business intelligence system like Power BI, or you have an analyst team that does it for you. One of the two. That's it. And now you're like, what if it could just give me the answer? Right? And I'm sure, hopefully, everyone here uses ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or something else a lot. And you all know you can just take it in a spreadsheet and say, hey, what are the top trends in the spreadsheet, or what are my top customers, or what are the top problems, or whatever. We all know this. Hopefully, if you're not, definitely start playing with it if you're not. And so I think what it's going to allow us to do with generative AI is actually finally fulfill the mission that I think all software companies have always had, which is, you and I both sold software for a long time and built software for a long time. You go in and your sales pitch is something like, hey, buy our software and we're going to generate more revenue or reduce costs or whatever, like in Gainsight's case, right? Buy our software and it's going to reduce churn, and, improve your onboarding experience for your customers, improve adoption, blah, blah, make you more scalable, more automated, and so on and so on. And it's great, except it's just a tool. It's a tool that if you know how to look at that report, how to run that automation, how to, script that email, then you'll be great. And if you don't, you won't get anything out of it, right? You think about marketing automation space, I think you know well as well, where there's like so many great products and they're all dependent on the quality of the marketer operating. But with the world of agents, you can actually deliver the end result to the client. Now we can actually give, in our case, for example, we're building what we call our Atlas family of agents, ATLAS, and we're taking tasks in the customer journey, so onboarding, adoption, executive business review, renewal, and saying, what if an agent could do it? Starting initially with probably the long tail of a company's customer base. For example, one of our pilot customers is DocuSign, and they've got, a long tail that's managed by a team in Sao Paulo. And that team manages, hundreds of millions of ARR with 100-ish, 130 people, I think. And that team is great, but they would love to deploy that team to like higher touch customers. And what if agents could actually do that for you? So pre-generative AI, DocuSign's been a customer for a long time. They get our workflow software, they get our reporting, they get all the products from Gainsight, but they have to operate them. Post-generative AI and agents, what about a world where like we can actually do the renewal for them for the low end? That's a huge opportunity for us business wise. Our TAM expands radically. And it also has way more value for them too. So I personally think there's a radical change in the value proposition of a software company, where we can finally deliver on the sales pitch. We've all pitched revenue, cost, blah, blah, blah. But what we've really delivered is a tool,
Right.
right? It's like we were going into companies. It's like we're going into, as if somebody went to you and said, hey, Doug, I'm going to build you your house. And you said, great. And then they said, here's a toolkit. And you're like, that's not a house. That's a toolkit. And now you're like, no, I can actually build you the whole house if you want. By the way, if you want to build part of the house and I build part of it, or maybe I know how to build part of the kitchen, you build the rest. And it's going to be a progressive thing. Now, how to do it, that's where it is. It is really challenging because you have an existing business, like the incumbents, we're not a huge incumbent, but we're not a startup. And the incumbents have some assets, customer relationships, data, workflow, domain knowledge, blah, blah, blah. And they have a liability, which is an existing business and existing ways of working and having been around a decade, right? But I do think that the assets are pretty powerful. And so if you can go create like a new team or whatever way you do it and like go after that new initiative, maintain your core business, but have people that are focused on this future, I think, we all can radically change what we do and most importantly, deliver a lot of value to our customers.
Yeah, I love the I'm with you on the reporting side. I remember even when, if you remember Fred Schulmover at Insight Square, right? The like breakthrough for me in that product was just that they add what's the question this report answers, and
Yes. Yeah. I
it was
remember
like that to me was like it was like this is such an advance. Just going like I'm looking at some report, I'm not having to decipher a bar chart or a line graph or whatever. I'm like this report is answering this question, right? And that's at the end of it is what it all comes down to. It's like I have a question I want answered, right? Um,
And I'll
yeah,
tell you, Corey, that you might appreciate this. We have amazing teammates and some, a few, people in operations and analysts and stuff like that. And some folks, they like their charts. And
mhm,
so I have some of my favorite people at Gainsight will make these inscrutable charts, which will have like 17 series and there'll be like a multi-column, a combo bar chart, pie chart, and there'll be a slide on a screen in this from some inscrutable chart. And what I started doing is I just, rather than the cognitive load of trying to figure out what the heck the chart says, I take a picture of it. I say, ChatGPT, what does this mean? And literally it gives me the answer. So exactly what I
yeah,
remember when it transpired out of just the summary of it. And
yeah.
now it's like, no, it's so good at interpreting this stuff. Like this is what it's really good at. One of
Yeah.
the things it's really good at.
Do you think this is in your products, or is this just an MCP interface and people are going to kind of
Um,
interface
it's
default through?
really interesting. So we've done both. Like, so we built prompt-based reporting. I think everyone's doing something like that. Where prompt-based reporting, for folks that don't know, you type in a question. It essentially is translating it into some kind of like SQL or metadata type language, and then it executes a report. So we've got that. There's other, yeah, I think that's going to be everywhere. But I think that what you said, MCP, for people that don't know, Model Context Protocol, don't feel bad if you don't know it because it came out about 6 months ago. Anthropic originally kind of pioneered it, but it's a new standard of how LLMs can connect to different data sources, applications, databases with without a lot of custom code in between. And so, yes, there's an interesting world in the future where Gainsight will have some users that are using us through our UI like they do today. We'll have users using us, not using us directly, but where our agents are actually executing work on behalf of their customers. So the agent's almost like a user of our software, but it's an agent using it. And then some of our customers will probably be prompting Gainsight via this MCP protocol from ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, something else, right? Copilot, etc. And so, yeah, I think you have to like be ready for all of these use modes. UI is just going to be one mode now. There can be so many.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because I think I'm not a believer in that. Like there's obviously folks who've said, oh yeah, we won't need SaaS software. It's just going to be all like, MCP interfaces to a bunch of different data stores. And I do think there's an organizing principle. There's still the collection normalization, all of those pieces that's part of it that's still there.
That's the thing, the term that like is for me, the most powerful. It's the word domain. Because essentially like, business in general, like a lot of it is you're taking some noisy thing of like all this chaos and you're organizing around some premise. The premise is like, I know how to market or I know how to sell or I know how to do something, right? And like you look at HR as a good example, right? So yes, every company could run their own completely bespoke HR processes, or you could say, no, there's some processes that you do in HR, recruiting, talent management, performance management, and so on. And so companies like Workday, their IP, part of it's in the UI, but a lot of it's in that data model. Salesforce, data model. Like, so to me, the schema, the data model, the domain knowledge, that's where the IP will be long term, probably less so in the UI.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the role of CSM, because I mean, there's a lot of people, and this is across any role in an organization. There are some camps that are like, no, 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 we're not going to lose jobs. People are going to be doing higher value work, and they're just going to be happier. I had Amanda from One Mind on the show
Yeah, we just talked
recently,
earlier.
and, yeah, and she was just like, bullshit. There's going to be a lot of jobs that go away, right? So what do you? I mean, and already CSMs are being asked to take on more and more accounts, and now you're saying, hey, listen, there's lots of automation happening. What do you think happens to the CSM role in the future?
It's so interesting because I know Amanda well, and she's a great entrepreneur, and she and I have probably a similar mindset. I don't know if we should call ourselves AI truthers or something. We need a term for this. But I understand there's a camp that is hey, technology always creates more jobs than it destroys, and everyone will be fine. And then there's the camp of we're all screwed. And I'm like in between, which is like most likely what's going to happen is all kinds of dislocation. And as with everything in life, dislocation will work out great for some people and not great for others. And there's some problems there that are probably outside the scope of this podcast. But NCS as an example that I know quite well, yes, like I think that on the high end, you will need humans working with customers. I think in some ways we might value relationships more on average in that like high end. And so I don't know if they'll be called CSMs or salespeople or there'll be some hybrid. We probably could merge some of these roles together because there's too many roles in companies right now. On the low end, frankly, the humans aren't very effective today anyways. They're like, we're taking really talented, smart people and asking them to just be like robocallers, right? And that's where like I think agents will just do better. So I do think that there'll be parts of the stack where agents will outperform and parts where humans will outperform. But, at the end of the day, like in a world where AI is outperforming, international math Olympiad finalists or chess grandmasters, I think that if somebody's sending a renewal contract or a SDR sending a cold email, like it's not impossible to believe AI will outperform in some circumstances. Does that mean people don't have any jobs? No. But does it mean everything will be fine and totally the way it is? No, not either. So I'm like in between those two extremes, I guess.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I do think that a lot of the low value stuff in the roles are just it's going to be better. I mean, I think Jason Lemkin, who you referenced in a recent post to somebody you follow as well, was basically just describing, I think, the last 30 days of his interactions with low level sales reps and customer support.
I read that.
Every single one of them could have been better with it. AI would have been better for that.
It's not, I mean, that's the bar on the low end is really low. That bar, I mean, one way to think about it, by the way, is the jobs that I think agents are going to be most suited for short term are also the jobs that companies thought of or have outsourced in some cases. Because
Yep.
it's a similar calculus. Like if you're willing to outsource it to a business process outsourcer, call center company somewhere, then you probably also could outsource it to an agent. By the way, there's also an interesting world where sometimes I think there's going to be hybrid where you have agents, but you have human in the loop for certain situations because it's not like an agent can handle every situation. There's all kinds of corner cases and as you asked about before, building all this stuff, it's non-deterministic, so it's not like a guaranteed execution path. And so having some humans is good. But the fact that we have these huge industries of outsourcers with terrible customer experience, not because of them, because fundamentally that's a flaw in concept.
Yep.
Agents are going to do better, no doubt about it.
No, it's amazing. We're using Intercom for our customer support. And it's, like handles beautifully the Fin AI engine is amazing. The other example I often use living in the Bay Area is Waymo. Like as a product person, I never realized not having a driver in the car was a feature. I always realize like it's a great business model for Uber or whoever's going like running that to not have to pay drivers and like all the elements of that. But I didn't realize from a passenger, it's like when I talk to my kids, they're like, "Oh, we'd much rather ride in a Waymo than an Uber, right? And or a Lyft."
Totally. You can see it. That's a good analogy, too, because Uber has obviously the different tiers or whatever car or ride share you use in what country the people watching are in. If you're taking Uber Blacks all day or like a private car service, yeah, it's probably fun. But if
Yeah.
you're taking like an Uber X in some random city, you know what? Like that's a pretty hit or miss value proposition. I don't know, but you have gotten to cars that like the driver clearly just smoked like 4 packs right before the pickup, or they have like just learned how to drive apparently because they don't know how to drive, and you feel like you're worrying about your own life. I was talking to one of my daughters. She said that she was in an Uber and the Uber literally was doing a TikTok live while he was driving. I'm like, that is just illegal. But you know what? Waymo's not going to try to do a TikTok live while it's driving.
No,
It's just going
no.
to drive. Oh, yeah.
And so and when Amanda and I were having this conversation, I think like there's some things where you're just like, I just want to get some questions answered. I don't want to have to schedule a bunch of phone calls, or I want to, like in your case, it might be like, listen, I just want the renewal contract without having to talk to somebody, or just like send me the QBR results and I'll tell you if I want to go talk to somebody to interpret them.
It's interesting too, because that is one of the things. Like right now, everything is a meeting. Everything has to be a meeting. And we have such finite time for meetings. But especially when you're talking to like executives, lots of times the time they would be able to check out your product or service is like Saturday afternoon or, Friday night or whatever. We don't have lives as executives, I think, but that's a different issue. But, agents can let you get access to people that you normally would never get access to. That's another interesting thing about it.
So let's shift gears a little bit to talk about culture, something I know that we're both really passionate about. First of all, you're famous for your fun videos and Taylor Swift impersonations and all that. Kind of when did those start, and like, do you ever look at the ROI of those, or is that just a creative outlet for you?
Well, so there's no way to measure the ROI. I'll answer that one up front. And it's definitely a creative outlet. And that's part of the job I love. So for sure. And I know for sure that this creativity and some of the stuff we talked about before, the conferences, the community, all this stuff that you could never measure is the only reason why Gainsight exists. Everything about our company's value comes from all of that stuff. It's interesting. Like I'll tell you a couple like silly stories. Like I remember early on, like we did, from the beginning, we were doing these silly things. Actually, you'll like this one. This is a in the vault story. I don't think I've told this one before. I can tell it now. 2013, we're just getting started. Anthony Kennedy, our CMO, we're in that crappy office in Mountain View. And I'm like, we should do a silly parody video. I think I grew up like listening to Weird Al Yankovic because I'm such a nerd. And so therefore I like love these parody things and love SNL and stuff. And so we're like, let's do a parody of Wake Me Up When September Ends. The Green Day, obviously, all-time iconic song. But let's do it about going to a conference, and we're going to go to Dreamforce. Now, this is, in hindsight, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. Just to look at it. Actually, there's many. This is one of the many dumbest things I've ever done. So one of the few skills I have, I'm a decent writer. So I rewrote the song. I'm pretty good at like rewriting. And so I rewrote the song to be like, wake me up when the keynote ends. And we're going to use it as a Dreamforce promotional video, not realizing that that's not something Mark Benioff would like seeing. And it's so funny because we made it, and I need to find the video. It's like we took it down, but like we're literally all like in emo, like we had eyeliner, all three guys, all like they call it guy liner. Anthony's playing the guitar. It's so good, so bad, so cringe. And we send it to our rep at Salesforce, our partner rep, because we were like in that partner, whatever. And she's like, "What are you smoking? Take this down right away. If Mark ever saw this, he's gonna hate you." And we literally, if you find, there's a version on YouTube. I'll send it to you. And it's badly dubbed to be now. Wake me up when October ends or whatever. Whenever the chorus was ending, so it's like wake me up when October. It's like, and so it's so funny because we made all these like we were trying to get Box as one of our first customers, and we literally took. There's a song from the '90s. It's so cheesy. You probably in my room. It's called "What If God Was One of Us." What if?
Yeah.
And I rewrote it to be "What if Box was one of us?"
Oh my God.
We SAS Gangsters Paradise, Coolio, rest in peace. Saster's Paradise for the Saster conference. Over the years, our production value went up, and we've done, I mean, just hundreds, like rap video spoof, Ted Lasso spoof, everything, Backstreet Boys, Olivia Rodrigo, much Taylor Swift, all kinds of things. We did a Wicked, this most recent Pulse conference was all Wicked theme. I'm a huge musical fan. And so all Wicked, I was wearing the wizard outfit, and we did so we just got really into it. But the funny thing is, on the business side, putting aside the personal interest, on the business side, what's interesting is customers, like at the end of the day, they want to buy from people they like. And a lot about people that seem real. And so the combination of like silliness and humor and vulnerability, it resonated. I remember early on, somebody's like, "Nick, that's great for like selling to startups, but you're not going to want, like, big companies aren't going to want to see that stuff. They want to see professionalism, formality, suits, or whatever. And I'm like, let me tell you something. When we have our events, you know, the people closing out the karaoke floor, it's the people from IBM. Because you know
Yeah.
what? Like, it's like a unique opportunity for them to just like let loose. By the way, these big companies, they don't even get together in person. So yeah, I mean, it's truly like foundational to who we are as a company. It is my passion and my fun, but it's also been a really big part of who we are.
I think it's, it comes across in so many ways. And obviously, you've got over 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, and you've built that up over time. But also, that's a big part. What I notice in your posts is a lot of that vulnerability is a really key word, that kind of authenticity. How do you think about, one is somebody who has been starting to post more regularly on LinkedIn and think about it. How do you kind of, you know, what's your process of writing and getting stuff out there, and then how do you decide like what to share?
Two different, yeah, two. Well, one thing, it's the worst time ever to be on LinkedIn. So it's just the slop is insane.
Yeah.
But, two things. So like I write everything myself. So that's, sometimes people ask that. I'm like, it's just, I'm into writing. I love writing. I write all the time for fun, for work. And, what I do is anytime I have a conversation, if like each day, there'll be like a bunch of interesting conversations, and I'll just make a note, be like, I should write about that. For example, we're just doing I was in a roundtable with an investor talking about building agents in SaaS companies. And we're talking about, like, I was thinking about how, like, if you're selling to SMBs, it's actually agents are great because your SMB customers couldn't build their own AI and agents. They don't have that technical capabilities, and how like SMB tech is really poised to go crazier with AI, you know? And so like that, I thought of that in this meeting, and then I'm going to write a post about it probably next week. And so every conversation I have, it's just like a running loop in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, that would be interesting to write about. And they're just, some of them are about AI. Nowadays, most of them are AI, just what I think about a lot. Sometimes it'll be about culture or what I look for in a leader or whatever. And so I've got a running list. Like literally it's in whenever my reminders, Apple reminders thing, or I have Google Tasks ideas. I have all of the, ideas. One of the folders is my ideas, and I just write them every weekend. I write probably five, and then I post them the coming week or whatever. If I'm on a United flight with no Wi-Fi, which is quite common, then I'll write a bunch, And so I'll just keep writing and writing and writing. So that's part of it, is just kind of like the thought process. Now, how do I decide like what to share? And the vulnerability part of it, that has been a journey. I mean, the biggest unlock for me happened in 2016. So we launched in 2013, and we did Pulse our first year, 2013, then 2014, 2015. It was always kind of zany and fun. But 2016, we brought our company together for like, just a company meetup. We were already semi-distributed. So we all got together in Napa in, north of San Francisco. And I remember seeing this conference room. I think it was like a Marriott or something. And I had to close out, the event. And I remember, I would do, I think it was my opening. I was like, it was just for our employees. Let's say it was like 150 people, maybe 100 people. And I was like, okay, I could do my normal CEO thing of all the charts of up and to the right, how everything's great in our company, and we're all going to be great, and we're going to be crushing it and killing it. But I decided, let me just close and talk about like who I am as a person. And one thing that is very surprising to people now when they hear, but is very true for me, is I was an extremely lonely kid, like no friends, ate alone, kindergarten through 12th grade every single day, felt out of place, still have a lot of those feelings. I have imposter syndrome as a human, not as a little bit of CO2, but definitely as a human. And so I said that to our company. And what was interesting is I just opened up. And what was awesome was people were really kind to me, like after I finished. But then the rest of that event, this internal event, everyone else was more open to it. I'll never forget. There was a product manager, Julia. She got married, so she's not Julia Guyanine. If you're watching Julia, I still think you're awesome. And she was presenting, and she just shared her own vulnerabilities in front of the audience, in front of our little audience. And the audience, our employees, were all like, "We love you, Julia," and it was like so moving. And I was like, "Wow, it's infectious." So then, a few months later, we had Pulse, and I decided I'm going to do something crazy, and I'm going to close Pulse out by talking about being lonely as a kid. And I did it. And I did it first time I'd ever done something like that. It's like, look, because it's like at that point, 1,000 people I don't know, right? 1,000 of my closest friends I've never met. I'm speaking into the dark. When you're on stage, you can't really see anyone or whatever, right? So I walk off. I do this talk, same closing. I walk off. I'm like, did that go well or not? And I don't even know. Like when you walk off stage, if anyone's presented, you don't really know how it went. Like you have a sense, but you can't really tell. And so I remember initially like getting a dagger because one of our employees, like anonymously or secondhand said, I don't know about what my CEO talking about all that stuff. I want him to be tough and strong. And I was like, shit, I screwed up. But then all these customers and all these employees loved it. They loved it. And I, in fact, even wrote a blog post about that experience because at that time, strangely enough, I just turned 40. We actually had Vanilla Ice perform that year. You had to be there. And so it's called, the blog post is called like Vulnerability, Vanilla Ice, and Turning 40. And I wrote about that whole experience. So then every year afterwards, Doug, I closed Pulse out talking about hard stuff like dad having dementia and passing away. My first kid going to college and what that feels like. All the other feelings of like incompleteness, not being successful enough, time passing by, all the things we all have as humans. And oh my gosh, it connects with people so well. And even if it didn't, I would still do it because it feels good to me.
I love that. It was actually like when I first started posting on LinkedIn, I did a post that was basically like, I've always felt like I don't belong.
Yeah, right.
And it was, it blew up in such a big way of like feeling like an outsider and all this stuff. And, yeah, I really, I too am a huge fan of the vulnerability piece of it. And, I really appreciate leaders like you. And, I've had the good fortune of working under, folks like Jeff Weiner, who has, been
He's also he's the yeah. He can write books on this. Yeah.
just legendary on that. Um, and I know we're coming up on time, but I want to add one more thing on culture. Like, you've cared about this from the beginning, but recently you talked about culture 2.0
Yeah.
for Gainsight. So like, what was wrong with culture 1.0, or what do you feel like you had to change? Right.
Culture 1.0 was built during the bubble. That's the short answer. The longer answer is so yes. I mean, we all. It's interesting because you do have to be willing to evolve too. And you think about it. Gainsight launched in 2013. We were venture backed. We were kind of a hot company. Then we slowed down in growth. Then we eventually sold to Vista. Then we re-accelerated because it was like 21 and the best time ever to be a tech company selling to tech companies was 21. So it was a gangbuster year. Everyone went to club you can appreciate that. And then, then we had the come down that everyone's had. We're like very profitable and we're growing and all that and pretty, decent scale, but still like we got to find our next gear. And so, and also a lot of the people early on that are in a company, that are those like early iconic people, some of the ones I mentioned, they move on naturally. It's just natural. But you end up in this thing where you're like, well, where do you find that edge? And it's even that was all there in like 20, we have this like Gainsight 2.0, very cliche way to describe it. But it was even me learning to be like I called it Nick 2.0. Like I'm good at some things, but I'm not naturally good at being candid. I'm getting better. But part of Nick 2.0 was being candid. It's a little funny side note. I was a total prude forever, and I never swore. Like, if my kids would almost laugh at me because they're like teenagers, and they're like, "Dad," I would literally say HE double hockey sticks, like 1950s, like yeah. And so I would, and then like it's strange because in some weird way, I'm a big Swiftie, and Taylor Swift in her later eras, there's actually a graph of this online, swear words per album, and it goes from 000 to like skyrockets in like Tortured Poets Department Life. And the same thing with me. I got more candid because I was able to give people more feedback. I'm still not great at it, but I'm working. And people I've hired, like my president, Check on Empathy, and others, like they've helped me because they're better at it. And then also we need Gainsight to be tougher and more candid. We adopted like a new mascot, the honey badger. If you remember the honey badger, like in the from 1,000 years ago, and like just like that toughness. And it's interesting because we did all that as like the beginning of generative AI, but before we knew it was going to change everything. And now you're like, look, every SaaS company is in a massive amount of flux now. And everyone is, you just only question, do you realize it or not? I know it. And I know we got to reinvent. And so therefore we need a 2.0. We need it badly and we're working on it. We're not all the way there, but I'm very proud of the people like making that transition.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So just kind of wrapping up here, let's final shift gears to Nick. Things we may not know about you. So tell me a little bit about Just what do you do for fun?
I'm a really weird dude. Like I'm like it's funny. Like I'm super into music. I'm creative stuff, musicals. Huge Steeler fan. You can see back there. And I've missed a game since 1996, literally. And I mean, like that's every diehard. I'm diehard. I'm just into whatever I do. But I think probably one of the more recent ones. I told you I love writing, and I actually love fiction, poetry, things like that. And so I've written in the last year ish about 100+ poems about like totally random stuff that's bespoke to me about. It's always like some weird mix of like Taylor Swift, like they're all inspired by songs or movies or books. So they all, and some people know Taylor re-recorded her stuff and they're called like, Red Taylor's version, right? So these are all, everyone is like something Nick's version. So for example, I wrote one inspired by like Die with a Smile, like the Bruno Mars, Lady Gaga song. It's Die with a Smile, Nick's version. But they're never about that song or that inspiration. They're about whatever something I was thinking about. So, but if you write them, you'd be like, this dude's weird. Like one of them will be about like the connection between quantum physics and like the nature of a company. And the next one will be about death and like Paul Simon. And the third one was like, it's such a strange combination, but I will tell you, I take them all. And this is the craziest thing. They're all a giant Google Docs. It's like 100 pages now. And I exported this PDF and I was like, hey, ChatGPT, what do you think of my poems? And like in 10 seconds, it's giving me amazing feedback. Of course, it's a little sycophantic. It says, it was brilliant. And yeah, you have to adjust for the sycophantic nature of the LLMs, but it's actually really interesting. So anyways, I love writing. I really love writing.
I love you. You covered with two birds. Normally, I ask people what do they do for fun and what's something we'd be surprised to know about you, but I think you just covered them both with that one answer.
It's everywhere. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm just an unusual dude, but I own it.
All right, so let's geek out on products for a second.
Yeah.
Outside of Gainsight and ChatGPT, like, what's a product in your personal life that you use and just love, right?
Okay, so I think I have a couple of random ones that are like less because there's all the obvious stuff that I won't say. But like I think yeah, definitely the vibe coding tools are really awesome. They're very raw. All the AI stuff is interesting because it's super raw. Like I was like every time I'm like proudly let me show Replit or Lovable or one of these vibe coding tools. And of course, like every time I try to show it to like a family member, something it like throws an error. Like I'm like, but those are amazing. Like those are real. I love playing with that stuff. It's just so cool. I love all the next gen like wearable stuff. Like I use this really like as I've gotten older, sleep became like less automatic, which is super annoying. And so there's something called Pulsetto, which is this thing you put around your neck and it like stimulates your vagal nerve right here. It's like a nerve
Wow.
here. It helps you like pulsate. But it's interesting, you put it around your neck and it connects to your iPhone and it's like pulsing this like very lightly. And it's fascinating, all these wearable devices, and we're going to only see like just a total explosion of these because now AI will be able to process this data in real time and tell us so much stuff. So I think that all of those things are, I mean, I use Aura, of course, a lot of people do as well. And yeah, you got it. I see that. So yeah, so I think a lot of these wearables I think are really, really interesting as like just a next gen, like things are going to change a lot. But yeah, those are two things about me.
And then just finally, how can listeners kind of stay in touch with you and help you on Gainsight's journey?
If you're on LinkedIn, you just can't get away from me. Even if you want to, you probably want to get it. You're like, that's the guy I keep trying to unfollow and somehow it's always my feed. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can certainly like follow me or link, send me a message or whatever. But yeah, or go through Doug.
There you go. Nick, always a pleasure. We could talk for hours, but thank you so much for taking the time. Great to have you.
Really enjoyed it. Thanks, man.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.